Okay, now in the category of science, we've already looked at these guys, Cox and Stephen Hawking. At number 3 on the science league is Richard Dawkins. Now Dawkins made a lot of TV programs bashing religion and promoting the idea of evolution and Darwinism, but he doesn't really tackle any of the huge flaws in the theory of evolution. He made one series called The Enemies of Reason, and in that series he went to interview Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, who I've met and interviewed. Now Rupert Sheldrake has done research into psychic phenomena and animals' possible psychic abilities, this kind of thing. So they go into Sheldrake's house, and the cameraman films from the side with Dawkins and Sheldrake sort of in a confrontational conversation. So Dawkins pipes up that in a romantic spirit he himself would like to believe in telepathy, but there just wasn't any evidence for it. He dismissed all research on the subject out of hand. He said that if it really occurred, it would turn the laws of physics upside down, and added extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So Sheldrake replied, well, this depends on what you regard as extraordinary. Most people say they have experienced telepathy, especially in connection with telephone calls. In that sense, telepathy is ordinary. The claim that most people are deluded about their own experience is extraordinary. Where's the extraordinary evidence for that? So then they both agreed that controlled experiments were necessary. Sheldrake said that this is why he had actually been doing such experiments, including tests to find out if people really could tell who was calling them on the telephone when the caller was selected at random. The results were far above the chance level. The previous week, Sheldrake had sent Dawkins copies of some of his papers, published in peer-reviewed journals, so that he could look at the data. Dawkins seemed uneasy and said, I don't want to discuss evidence. Why not? Sheldrake asked. There isn't time. It's too complicated. And that's not what this program is about. The camera stopped. So I think Sheldrake has exposed what the likes of Dawkins is up to on mainstream television. And it seems to me that they're trying to keep the public's mindset focused on that the world is just made of atoms and that's it. All you are is a biological computer. There's no soul, there's no spirituality. Because if we just consider space for a moment, I actually believe that matter or atoms are trapped light. And we've discussed this in some of my previous shows. But light is a vibration through space, or of space, of the fabric of space itself. So space and matter and atoms are all part of the same continuum. So it's very important to consider space when you're considering reality. I would actually argue that space itself is more important than atoms. And Sheldrake has looked into a lot of this. I'll give you an example. Sheldrake actually believes that your long-term memory is not stored inside your head. And there's a lot of evidence for this. I actually agree with him, that your brain is more like, this for your long-term memory, not your short-term memory. Your brain is more like a tuning device, and it's actually accessing those memories from somewhere in space. He calls it morphic resonance. And there's a lot of evidence for this, but it's not put forward fairly in mainstream television. I mean, we could also look at other things such as the non-physical world, which again is completely poo-pooed in mainstream. Nigel Kerner refers to a universe where you have space, atoms, light, matter, and also a Godverse. So this is where your consciousness would reside. And even many scientists believe that there is another realm that has to exist in order for you to experience the physical world. Which, as I say, Nigel Kerner would refer to it as the Godverse. And he even says that your awareness and your will are not part of the physical world. They're part of this other realm. But this is something which mainstream, they don't really want to discuss. And the reason is because it empowers you. Because you realize you're not just a bunch of atoms. You're far more than that. We all are. Okay, and another person who is possibly being used to mislead people in the past is Albert Einstein. We made a program about him, and many of his claims top scientists now say were incorrect. And Dr. Alice Roberts, number 5 on the list of scientists, kind of a female version of Cox, depicted as a science geek. She started popping up in various programs, has a slightly alternative image with her dyed hair and nose piercing. However, she is clearly stolid establishment material. She did a program on the origins of humans. Yes, all races really did originate from the same source in Central Africa. She also does health programs on how we should eat what we're told to and do the exercise we're told to. Okay, so in the category of TV presenters, we've already discussed these guys. At number 7 on the chart, one of my favourites, David Dimbleby. Establishment stooge who fronts the weekly open propaganda mind control exercise Question Time. Question Time is a classic programme which uses the phony bone of contention, has 2 arguments, which is discussing a phony issue, and the answer is always outside of the actual argument that they're discussing. Philip Schofield. Mr. Nice himself was complicit in the scuppering of the Lord McAlpine investigation. This is a viewer's comment, not my comment, by accidentally showing the nation a piece of paper with suspects' names on it. It is my opinion that he is a security service asset and paedophile protector. Now, this is the incident that the viewer is talking about, where Schofield supposedly prints off a list of paedophiles from some rogue website and hands it to Cameron. Now, I've discussed this with Neil Sanders on my show, and he's of the opinion that an event such as this is completely scripted from start to finish. And the fact that those names were accidentally seen by the camera would have been done on purpose. This was being done possibly to take control of this issue and maybe to garner sympathy for Cameron. And Neil Sanders compared it to the Nixon-Frost interviews of 1977, where Frost supposedly got some admissions out of a former president about things connected to the Watergate affair, but Neil Sanders alleges that this was scripted by the Pentagon, and it wouldn't surprise me if this is the same. All right, at number 9, Piers Morgan. I can hear the groans in the audience. Yeah, a creation of Rupert Murdoch. And at number 10, now I put this presentation together before this latest rubbish about Clarkson, so he would have been probably near the top, I would imagine, had I done this later. Now, this viewer says, has made it his comedy style to insult and demean other cultures and less fortunate people than himself. Now, to me, what I think's going on here with this Clarkson drivel, and Russell Brand as well, is they're trying to create anti-heroes. So Brand is put out to appeal to younger, more left-wing minded people. Clarkson is appealing to middle-aged, more conservative thinkers. And they're both, in my opinion, acting as sponges, because there's a lot of people who are disillusioned with mainstream media and mainstream politics. They don't buy into it. And these 2 guys, I think, are put out to soak up that interest and make sure it goes nowhere, to make sure those people don't find genuine alternatives to the mainstream media politics, and they put their faith in these fake heroes. That's what they're for, and that's what all these headlines you've seen are for. Okay, on TV presenters, number 11, Jon Snow. Possesses the intelligence to know better, but still elects to shovel bullshit at us during the week on Channel 4 News. The Pope. Could probably do a whole lecture on the power of the Vatican. It's a religious capitalistic society in which the Pope is regarded as a messianic figure with the propaganda of the church media. Barack Obama, governed by the same type of individuals who hide behind the great financial interest. A Hollywood actor, in my opinion, that's all he is. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Somebody sent me a video of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was governor of California, saying how we need to clamp down on illegal use of drugs in sport, which I thought was a bit odd. Yeah. Nigel Farage. We'll come on to Farage. Boris Johnson, number 8. There's a lot of groans. Yeah. Get it out your system. Yeah. Boris Johnson markets himself and is marketed as a lovable oaf, a toff with no airs and graces who is down to earth and likeable. Nothing could be further from the truth, as he is at least as bad as Cameron, willing to do whatever he's expected to by his string pullers in return for a little fame, power and glory. George Galloway at number 9, an interesting choice. This is the viewer's comment, not my comment. The man who started a crowdfunding project for £50,000 to make a documentary about Tony Blair, £250,000 later, no expose, but Georgie has had a makeover. The rebel politician, friend of Islam, and 9/11 official story stated believer. So what this person is talking about is Galloway was wanting to make a film all about Tony Blair called The Killings of Tony Blair, which is a double meaning, meaning the illegal wars and also the monies that he's made from giving speeches and that kind of thing, the killings of Tony Blair. But apparently Galloway is alleged to have said that he would make it once he got 50 grand, and it's never transpired according to this viewer. And the thing that puts a question mark over Galloway's head, in my opinion, is that he as far as I'm aware, he believes the official story of 9/11. I mean, how can anyone believe the official story of 9/11? Okay, next, Hillary Clinton. Well, more groans from the audience. All right. And in the category of sport and celebrity, somebody has voted for Jessica Ennis-Hill. Subconsciously promotes a certain way to look, which is unobtainable to the average woman. Used by the Bank Santander to attract young men and women with the sole intention of getting them to open a bank account and get them into debt. And this is part of the agenda. Keeping people locked into consumerist materialism, thinking they need the best of everything in order to be a proper person. And someone who also promotes this kind of thing is Karen Brady. Karen Brady, who was the managing director of Birmingham City Football Club at the age of 23. Now, there's an interview with Karen Brady and Piers Morgan, if you can watch it without being sick. I'm sure you could probably get it on the internet, but sort of, it's the idea that it's putting across is that the only way of measuring somebody's success is how much money they've made for themselves. It's pretty disgusting, if you ask me. But if you look at Karen Brady's past, you'll find that she isn't a self-made millionaire as she's portrayed in these programs. She was taken under the wing of David Sullivan, one of Britain's millionaire pornographers, and she lied on her CV in order to get a job at Saatchi & Saatchi. So she's not a self-made millionaire, even though that's what they're putting forward. So they're fake for two reasons. Okay, in the area of finance, we've got Alan Greenspan, the former chairman of the Federal Reserve. This viewer says he was a false financial prophet with a subversive agenda. And I think this is indicating that the groups that really control the central bank and the world's money are not those that they put forward visibly for people to actually see and question. They're puppets. And Max Kaiser, another interesting choice. I would imagine there's a lot of people in this audience watch RT, Russia Today, and for an alternative news source, but in my opinion, RT is as bad as the BBC because it's making people think they've got an alternative news source. The day that RT does a 2-hour-long interview with Dr. Judy Wood with all of the evidence in this book and Andrew Johnson, the most important book written this century, the day they do that, the day I will think RT is not just controlled opposition. And they give a huge platform to this guy, Max Kaiser, who has been promoting Russell Brand recently. All right. Now, the concept of using false heroes and role models goes back millennia, but it was spoken about by somebody called Yuri Bezmenov. Now, Yuri Bezmenov was a KGB agent. He worked for the Soviets in the 1960s, and he spoke about subversion because his job was to place false stories in foreign countries' media, create fake organizations and media organizations in order to subvert foreign nations and demoralize them. And on his chart, you can see in the category of ideas and culture, create false heroes and role models. And this is a way of manipulating the masses. So I'm just going to show you a clip from Yuri Bezmenov. So he defects to the West in the early 70s, I think, to Canada, and he starts giving lectures on the Soviet subversion techniques in the early 1980s. And here's a few clips from one of his lectures.
Subversion can be only successful when the initiator, the actor, the agent of subversion has a responsive target. It's a two-way traffic. United States is a receptive target of subversion. Distract them from learning something which is constructive, pragmatic, efficient. Instead of mathematics, physics, foreign languages, chemistry, teach them history of urban warfare, natural food, home economy, your sexuality, anything, as long as it takes you away. Take away the initiative from people. Take away the responsibility from naturally established links between individuals, group of individuals, and society at large, and replace them with artificially, bureaucratically controlled bodies. A slow substitution of basic moral principles. Where previously people settled their differences peacefully and legitimately, Now, we are getting with this court cases, in the smallest irrelevant cases, we cannot solve our problems anymore. The society at large becomes more and more antagonistic.
Okay, remember that. Society at large becomes more and more antagonistic, because this is what the Soviet Union was doing in the last century. What it would do, it would target certain nations that it was going to try and convert into communist countries. These would be independent, sovereign nations, and it would practice subversion on them. So it wouldn't invade them and take control of them immediately. It would put subversives into those countries that would start fake organizations, start tinkering with the law and this kind of thing. And it might take 20 years of subversion to get those countries turned red and taken into the communist bloc. Now, Yuri Bezmenov has spoken at length about how they did this, and he said that if they targeted a country for subversion, so that it could be taken control of, it would go through 4 distinct phases. So they would start with demoralisation. This is getting rid of the country's morals, so that people don't know truth from false, and that would be done by messing with the media and other organisations. So the country is just like a piece of jelly, can be steered in any direction. Then the phase 2 would be destabilisation. This is when the spinal column of the country is grabbed and it's dragged into crisis. So it might be a civil war, or it might be a coup, or it might be a revolution, and eventually it can be normalised and taken into communism. Now the first process, demoralisation, he describes it takes 15 to 20 years, and he says that's because that's how long it takes to educate the average person. Now it is my hypothesis that there is a constant programme of demoralisation right here, right now in the UK, by those who pull the strings of our government and remain hidden. I think that they are demoralising the public permanently to prevent any kind of realisation or awakening which would be able to challenge the people who are really running this country. And I've come to that conclusion because I've looked at Yuri Bezmenov's subversion chart. This is the first, just to point out, I don't think the agenda in the UK is to destabilise the country or take it into crisis. They've already got ownership of the country. It's a permanent phase 1. And as I said, I come to this conclusion because I've looked closely at Bezmenov's subversion. This is phase 1 here. This is the first 15 to 20 years where they're demoralising the country. This is it here. This is exactly as it appears in Yuri Bezmenov's chart. So we can pick out things on this chart which we can see going on in the UK. So in education, create permissiveness, resulting in ignorance. I think if you get, let's say, an A-level maths paper from 1980, you compare it to today, you can see that standards have gone right through the floor, and people are coming out of education ignorant. There's no doubt about that. In the area of media, monopolise and manipulate the media, focus on non-issues to create an uninformed myopia. Myopia meaning you're not aware of the big picture. In culture, we've already discussed false heroes and role models, so their intention was also to break up families. We're seeing a lot of families breaking up in our society today like never before. And the question you've got to ask yourself, is that being done via a subversion campaign or is it by accident? I say it's been done deliberately. In the area of health, focus on junk food and try to create enfeebled masses. You've just got to look around you to realise that people are not living healthy lifestyles, and ask yourself, is that via a subversion technique, demoralisation, or is it by accident? I say it's been done deliberately. And various other sections. So what I've done, I've looked at this chart and I've come up with the UK demoralisation chart, which is an indefinite period. I've changed some of it. For example, I've changed religion to social groups because I think they're creating social groups or infiltrating them with the intention of disempowering people. And that's what I think all of these community projects are. Community projects where they set up quangos, give them a load of money, but they have all these strings attached to them. In my opinion, adult learning, all that crap, it's all about disempowering people, not empowering them. In education, reduce the standards and centralise the syllabus, which is what they've done. And I'm going to look at some other areas in the rest of part 1 of today's talk. So we've already looked at false heroes and role models, which the intention is to create ignorance, create an ignorant population. But it's a particular flavour of ignorance where people don't realise they're ignorant, and also get people wrapped up into materialism, material goods, making people desire the lifestyle of the celebrities. Okay, let's look at another area. Now, I've got on the area of life, race, manufacture division, and create antagonism and hatred. It's a controversial issue. Someone said to me the other day, well, Richard, you never tackle the issue of race, so you're obviously a shill. Okay, well, let's take a look at it. And I think the issue of race is used to create antagonism and hatred, which is what Yuri Bezmenov spoke about. And we're all familiar with these sort of headlines, new migrant flood on way. But I would ask the question, are these headlines promoting a sober, intelligent debate about the issue of immigration, or are they creating fear? I would argue that, by and large, they're creating fear. I'm not saying there's not an immigration issue. I think there is. I think petrol is poured onto the issue and is ignited to get people in fear. Because once you're in fear, you think with a different mindset. You have a much more primitive sort of thinking once you're in fear of an issue. And I think that's what's going on. I'm just going to give you a simple example of why people don't really think with their brains on the issue of immigration. Let's just say that everyone in this room, we all go to another planet, and there's one island on that planet. So there's 100 of us, and each one of us have got £1,000. So some of us are farmers, some of us are builders, some of us are doctors, what have you. And we only need £1,000 each because that money is exchanged throughout the economy and it's fine. We're all living in peace and harmony. And two immigrants come along. One of them has got £100,000 and the other one has got no money. Every person on the island has got £1,000 each. Which one would it be in the best interest to let in your country? Which one would you let in? The one with the £100,000 or the one with nothing? The one with nothing, I'd agree with you. Because if you let the guy in who's got £100,000, he's got as much money as everyone in the island put together. So this guy would come and live and he wouldn't have to do any work. He could enslave the entire nation, have his house built, have all of his food grown for him, and he wouldn't have to do a day's work until the day he died. But not only that, by bringing his money to the island, we've got the same amount of resources on the island, but we've doubled the amount of money. So that means the value of money is halved. So everyone's pound in everyone's pocket becomes worth half of what it was before this guy was on the island. So in my opinion, every time you'd let this guy in, because this guy's going to have to do some work. He's going to have to grow some crops, which results in goods that he would sell and other people will benefit because he has produced those goods for other people. Now, it would be different if this guy had, say, 1,000 bags of potatoes or 1,000 bags of coal, i.e. assets, because fiat currency money is not an asset. It's not worth anything in itself. Money really is the ability to take an asset. So you would always let the guy in with no money who's prepared to work. Right? Now, when I was researching the Madeleine McCann case, I'm in Portugal and I'm at this bar and I'm talking to the barman and he's talking about this tennis club that he's in, which is full of expats. This is people who migrated from England into Portugal and they're living there permanently. They haven't gone there to work, they've gone there with their money to play tennis. And the three of them are sitting around the table with a newspaper on the table like this one. And all three of them are sitting looking at the newspaper saying, bloody hell, isn't it flipping disgraceful what's happening to our country? All these bloody immigrants. Right? And they're living in Portugal permanently. So the guy pipes up to them, he says, well, hang on, you're an immigrant of Portugal. And you know what they said? They said, oh, well, that's different, because we bring money. They thought that they were actually doing the Portuguese a favour by bringing their money there. Yeah? Absolutely deluded, completely deluded, because all they're doing by bringing their money there is pushing up house prices for local people and also introducing more currency, which is devaluing the local currency. So completely deluded. If you're going to let someone into your country, you let someone with no money in who's prepared to do work. And I would suggest that that's the majority of people who do come into the country. So it's double standards in a way. But as I say, I'm not saying there's not an immigration issue. I'm saying that it is blown up out of all proportion. And it is used to create antagonism. I mean, I would say that if I asked everyone in this audience, I'd probably get a different view on it. Everything from, say, we need to close the borders and let nobody in, to every person has the right to roam the planet freely and live wherever they like. Well, clearly the answer lies somewhere in between those two. Yeah? And indigenous people should be respected when people do move around the planet. So why can't there just be a simple, honest argument about that? Why is it such an antagonistic issue? And I suggest it's done deliberately because it's a great issue for getting people's backs up. Which, come on to this guy, you know. Now, I would agree with a lot of what Farage says with regards sovereignty. I don't think powers should be given to Europe and then possibly a world government after that, because he's against that, Farage. But I ask the question, has Farage been given a platform in order to create antagonism? Because I don't think he's going to become Prime Minister.